What's up, and welcome to Groundbreaking, a friendly original podcast celebrating and sharing the stories of young creatives across the music industry who are embarking on and writing their own journeys. Each episode, we feature a new up-and-comer, discuss their work, and make sure we leave you with the takeaway too. I'm Jake Brewer. Let's get started. On today's episode, I'm joined by Tamara Laurel, a new friend of mine and singer-songwriter based in Nashville, Tennessee. Today, we're diving into the headspace of a songwriter, her strategy for collaboration, what writers should know when they step into a session, how you can be a better writer to yourself and those you work with, and the work being done in the songwriting space to give credit where it's due. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Groundbreaking. I'm so thrilled you're with us today because we have a very exciting, very special episode with a very special guest. I've been looking forward to this one for a long time. I think if you're a listener to this show, you are going to be very interested in this episode because we're covering a topic that I think is so interesting and so unique to the individual writer themselves. We're going to be diving into how we write, strategies for co-writing, all of that stuff, everything you need to know as a songwriter today with one of the, I like to think of her as a newer friend in my life, which is really exciting because you don't really make a ton of friends once you leave college and everything. But today's guest is a new friend of mine. And I realized after the last time I saw her and I said bye, I was sitting on a plane coming back from Nashville, and I realized I didn't actually know that much about her story or her why. And I think that's one of the most exciting questions to ask any artist. So I'm really, truly excited to welcome my new friend, Tamara Laurel, to Groundbreaking.
Hi.
Hi.
I was just while you were saying that I was trying to decide if our friendship was truly cemented at the line dancing plays or when we realized that you could tell when someone had edited your text message
mm,
while watching the
I
Seahawks game.
I think line dancing is about the closest to a test as it can get. And I feel like we should also preface too. This wasn't a, like, with all due respect, this wasn't YMCA like stuff. Like, this was like pure, in my mind, authentic country line dancing in Nashville, and it was the best time ever. But I will also say, like, I humiliated myself, but you like killed it though. Like, I've never seen somebody pick up on dance moves so fast.
I'm embarrassed to admit that I've gone back to the Nashville Palace probably 4 of the last 5 weekends. So you were there when I
I was
realized
I
that
was
I
gonna
loved
call
it.
you out too because I know you've gone back a bunch of times. And I was like, it hurts me every time when I'm not there, but it also does regain some spirit and soul into my life every single time I know that you're there because you're blessing everybody who chose to spend their evening at the palace.
Next time you're in Nashville, we're going back, and I'll teach you the like 4 dances I've learned since we were there
Great,
together.
without a doubt. I won't pick up on any of them, but I will be doing them to the best of my ability.
Great. That's all we can ask for.
Amazing. Well, I agree. I love your presence so much, and I think from the very first day that I met you, I knew how talented you were even before I met you because I'd heard your work, and I think it is such a compliment to when you're a fan of somebody's work and then you meet them in person and you love their, not only them but their work even more. And it's such a joy, and I think that's why I'm so glad to be introducing you to everybody who listens to the show today, because I'm hoping to kind of give that gift to them, so no pressure or anything.
That is so sweet. Thank you.
But I want to start with what I was kind of thinking about last time we said bye was, like, what is your why? Like, I'm going to ask you a really tough question here to start, but like, why do you love what you do?
Yeah, okay. So going strong here right off the bat. Um, I think growing up, I went through a lot in early childhood, and I think music was always this place that was safe and kind of communicated really complicated feelings that sometimes in our day-to-day lives other kids or maybe family members don't want to approach, I guess.
Hmm.
And so music to me, just from a very young age, became this beautiful way that people communicated how they felt and who they were and what they liked and when they were sad. And it just really was how I understood the human condition best. And so music kind of happened to me actually because I was super academic in school. I really just I wanted to go to Stanford. I was going to be a doctor and then I'd get picked for honor choir or in elementary school or a teacher would pull me aside. Why don't you take violin lessons? Why don't you do the flute? Here, let's learn guitar. And then I don't know, I kind of was writing a lot of poetry and discovered songwriting, and again, it was, "Oh, this is how I have this art that other people have created that helps me understand the world better and feel less alone. I can also do that." If you
Yeah.
kinda learn a couple of rhymes and learn the song
Yeah.
structure, it's not too difficult to write a song, so I think that's kinda where it all began.
Yeah. Was anybody around you growing up musical as well, or did you kind of have to adopt that passion, like just individually?
No. I mean, my parents were really great about always having music on. There was always music playing, you know, like Bruce Springsteen and Eric Clapton. I knew every word to all of those as a young kid, which is pretty, I don't know, when people ask what my influences are or were, it's a little left of
Yeah.
center usually, but they always had music playing. It was a big part of our lives, but no, it wasn't really a career path I had ever seen or
Hmm.
anything that felt particularly tangible, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. Did you, when was like the first time you recognized that like songwriting could be a career? Because I think especially when we're young, you recognize celebrities and you recognize, but like the people who aren't on the album artwork or whatever it may be, but contributed so much to the project, it's not always as evident. So when did that kind of click for you?
Oh, that's a really good question. Last week. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
I think the way I've always seen it is, I went to college, I got a 4-year degree. I went to USC. I did business with a music minor, and it was kind of like, okay, business is the main thing I'm doing, but let's just see what happens if I learn guitar a little more and sing opera and try to write my own songs. Let's just see what happens. And then after that, I was an artist, an Americana artist in LA for a while. And again, I was working full time. It was sort of a let's just see what happens. I have the freedom to do this. We live in a day and age where, it's beautiful that anyone can create and put something on the internet and find their audience. It's such a blessing to be born at this time. And and then it was okay, I had a little bit of success doing that, but I really don't like performing. I hate performing, which is so rare in this industry and kind of important to think about if you want to be an artist. That's a pretty big part of your job. So
Yeah, yeah.
that's like
Especially starting out in LA too. Yeah, you just do open
exactly
mics galore.
right. And then I started to do these little West Coast tours, and I was, my whole band was driving up to San Francisco, and I was dreading it. And I remember calling a manager I was working with at the time, like, can I cancel this show? Do I have to do it? So it took a lot of, realizations, talking to other artists who said that was their favorite part. And I really sat down after a few years doing that and releasing two solo pieces of work. And I thought, if I could spend the rest of my life doing anything, what would it be? And it was the first half of all of that. It's living the story, finding a way to communicate it in song, going into the studio, finding the perfect way to express that with sounds, and then releasing that out into the world. And so I moved to Nashville. And again, it was a well, let's just see what happens.
Yeah.
Let's just see. So I think I would say the last year or even earlier this year. I know we're still pretty early in the year, but it was like, "Oh, okay, I can do this." Like, this doesn't
Yeah.
have to be the "let's just see" anymore. This can be the main thing.
What does it take to make that jump? Because the like always kind of the side thing transition becoming your full thing, I mean, is applicable beyond just music.
Right?
What does it like take in general, but also like what did it take for you to then be like, this is my time. This is the time to do this.
So I think a lot of it comes down to self-worth. And I think for me, I didn't move to Nashville till I was 30 years old, which compared to a lot of the people that I work with on a day-to-day basis, that's pretty old. And I think that that delay was in part due to, okay, do I deserve this? Is this something I deserve? And am I worthy of this? And I think any younger artist that I work with or person who is considering leaving a career or transitioning to something that maybe their parents don't really approve of or that they're scared of, I think just like really, as woo woo as this sounds, just take some time and work on your self worth. And the way I see it, I could either be older than everyone here and doing this and, figuring out my self worth in tandem and just giving it a shot, or I could be not here at all. So if I had to choose between the two, I think that I'd rather, you know,
Yeah.
be the first one and just try it. But I think it's definitely down to self-worth, like the audacity of deciding you want to do it and the audacity of going after it and taking up that space and not really caring what anyone else says.
Yeah. Did you have to teach yourself to hold that as a belief, or were there people around you that kind of were telling you to go?
I feel like most people are, this is probably, maybe not most people, but this is probably a common thing that a lot of people were faced with. But coming out of COVID, I did therapy seriously for the first time.
Hmm.
And it was, I kind of was like, yeah, I love to talk. Like, I'll talk to somebody, like, this would be great. But I never really understood how it could rewire things in your brain and, how profoundly it can change not only that moment, but your life and your future. So I would say definitely therapy. I did some work called EMDR, which kind of helps process trauma and just sort of saw the world differently and realized, we're all here once, depending on what you believe. But this iteration of things is only going to go once. And if this is what I want to do and I'm good at it and I like it, why not?
Yeah. Yeah. And why Nashville specifically? Because you were in the LA scene.
Right.
Was it a genre thing? Was it what about like was that did that difference kind of stand out? Because I went to Nashville for the first time just last year, and I think it was very different than what I expected. So
Hmm.
I want to hear about your kind of experience of why Nashville, why you left to go there, but also kind of why you stayed as well, because that can also be a reason.
Absolutely. Okay. This goes back to high school. Um, some of my really good girlfriends in high school were really into country music, and it had never really been my thing. And I was the first one to get my license because I was born in December, so I was a little bit older than all the girls born in the spring and summer. And so on the way home, I would drive everybody home, and we would listen to country, and I absolutely fell in love with it. The storytelling, lyrics, it took everything I loved about music and just like concentrated it. It was
Yeah.
just the perfect art form in my eyes. And so, and in alignment with that, I did a marketing competition in high school called DECA. And
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, do you know DECA?
Yeah. Wait, and it's so funny because we went to high school probably not that far
Right.
from each other, right?
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
yeah, I never did it, but I remember hearing about it. Yeah.
So my junior year, I won the Washington State competition, which you'll be particularly excited for me as a fellow Washingtonian. So
Yes, I was
yeah.
gonna say that's where I know you from.
Yeah, you were like
Exactly.
what, like
Yes.
2 years old?
Not
Uh,
even actually not even in Washington yet. That's so funny.
right, but you just
But
knew, your
we
spirit
heard
knew.
about you. Yes, yeah,
Yes, it
I
was
felt
just
it
like all over the billboards that
in
I
my
was the
infant heart. Yeah.
yes, absolutely. Um, and so I won state and went to nationals, and nationals that year was in Nashville. So I got this free trip with all these amazing high school friends and went to the Grand Ole Opry, and I saw Buddy Jewel among many other artists perform. They did like a special night for all us high school kids, but Buddy Jewel had that song, um, Help Pour Out the Rain. And we were all sitting there and we were all sitting in our different like groups, like by high school, by state. And the way that everyone was reacting to that song and like the way that there were just it was artist after artist after artist coming up playing like two or three hits. And there was one song I'll remember after this, of course, but where they called out different states in the song, and every state was like cheering, like all these high school kids like cheering when their state was like sung. It sounds so ridiculous, but for me, I was like, "Wow, that is amazing." It blew my mind. And we went all over. We went line dancing on Broadway as a
Oh,
17-year-old, different times, different times.
okay.
And I was like, "Oh, this is I could see it." And no one in my family had ever even been to Nashville, but because of this amazing opportunity I had, I got to really see it up close and thought, "Okay, this is somewhere." I just had a gut feeling like I will be here someday. Um,
Yeah.
Flash forward 6 years, I got a job offer in, Dallas, Texas, and the only reason I took it is because it was closer to Nashville than LA was, where I currently was, so that was my first job, and I took a trip out there, and a guy I had known took me under his wing, and I played an open mic at the Commodore down by Vanderbilt, and again was like, "Okay, gut feeling, this is where I should be." And then it took another, gosh, 7 years of being in LA doing the Americana artist thing, and it just was a gut feeling like, "I gotta go to Nashville." I turned 30, I woke up in the middle of the night one night, and it was like, "If not now, then when am I gonna do this?" So,
Yeah.
I did it, and I it worked
Nice.
out. I had a couple bandmates moving here at the time, I was still doing the artist thing, and yeah, so I guess sorry, that was a really long answer to your question, but it was
No, no.
it was always in the
Really,
back of
really
my mind.
important.
It
Yeah.
was, like, always in the back of my mind. It's really focused on songwriting. There's a lot of artists. It's kind of the mecca. If you wanna do what I wanna do, it's the mountain, so to speak, that you go to, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. What was your first kind of initial perception? So you moved to Nashville as an artist. Like that was what you were intending to like I'm feet on the ground, like this is my job now?
Like, half and half. It was like I worked for Live Nation, and I went in one day. I'd worked there for, like, 8 years at the time, and I said, "I'm leaving, going to Nashville. So you're either transferring me or I'm quitting."
Yeah.
So they transferred me. So it was like I had that job, so I had to
Nice.
kinda
Nice.
but yeah, it was half artist, still gonna it was gonna be my last shot as, like, fully wanting the artist thing, and then also kinda trying to figure out the songwriting scene because I did deeply wanna do that, I just wasn't sure how or if I could.
Yeah. What did you learn at Live Nation that maybe helped you feel like ready and empowered to kind of take on this like new sort of chapter? Were you able to kind of pull some like parallels into like working in that space, or like maybe this is how somebody in an office thinks, so when I'm outside of that office, this is how I can catch attention? Was there any sort of thought process like that?
Definitely, and, for all the things people wanna say about Live Nation, I mean, they take care of their employees. They paid a total of I would say probably a total of $7,000 over the course of my tenure toward my music career. Um, it was great to be around music every day. I was on the sponsorship side, so I almost started to feel a little I don't know, it's kind of that's the man side, you know? It's like that's
Yeah.
the man, finding corporate money, but through those skills, I was able to get some artist sponsorships for myself, but yeah, I don't know.
Cool.
That's a really good question. I think it has in ways that I just can't even they're so inherent in my life that I don't know.
Yeah. Was there anything about kind of living Seattle, LA, Dallas, Nashville? Because I've moved around a lot too, and I always kind of found what I loved doing always kind of evolved as I traveled. And I think a lot of that is because you learn so much about yourself as you constantly pull yourself from what you know. How did your love for what you do evolve as you kind of got closer to that city that you dreamed of being in?
It's so interesting, and I don't know if you can relate to this as somebody who's, does music and also has moved around a lot, but you get pretty good at finding the community. And
Yeah.
I'm part of what, like 4 different cities songwriting communities. They all shaped me so much into the writer that, you know, I am and I'm still becoming. But it kinda makes you fearless. Like, I think by the time I moved here, I realized, like, I have done this. I have created a community for myself in 3 other cities, so what's one more when all these people love doing exactly what I like to
Yeah.
do? Um, but I would say you find the songwriters, and then you learn from the best ones in the city you're in and really network
Yeah.
as much as you can. And then I definitely, you could say from a critical point of view that I wasted a lot of time getting here, but I don't think I would have as much to say in the room if I hadn't, lived a million different paths that ended up here.
Yeah. I have so many questions for you about what those rooms kind of feel like. And I almost don't even know where to start, but the one at the very kind of like top of my mind is like, what percent of, we'll give the circumstance of like, of you're writing for an artist who is in that room, what percent of your writing is your own personal outlook versus you trying to find their outlook?
Oh, this is a really good question. And I think it definitely depends on the writer.
Okay.
There are certain writers who really, they say write what you know, right?
Yeah.
And so there are certain writers who you will pull in because they've experienced something or they just have a lane that they just really excel in. And then I think I'm more of a chameleon in a sense that I'm older and have been around and lived a lot more experiences. And I'm also I hate saying this word. It makes me want to like roll my eyes, but I'm an empath as much as I like
Yeah.
hate the word. Like I am one. So I can like
I'll
really
is it better if I call you an empath? Does that make it better?
like no, I
Because
don't know. No.
I'll be like, you're an empath, that's why, and you can be like, oh.
Oh, you're so right. I never thought of that before.
Yeah.
um, but I think I just think I've been in a lot of these situations. And also something that really helps is I was an artist. So I know how it feels to be an artist at this stage. I know I've been there. I can remember it. I have a good memory. So for me, I would say it's maybe 50-50. I'm showing up. If someone's upset about their ex boyfriend, I'm tapping into me being pissed at an ex boyfriend at one point in my
Yeah.
life. And then also trying my best to really understand how that artist is feeling and how best to communicate that.
Yeah. Two-part question.
Mhm.
In a room, like, what do you do if maybe you're the most uncomfortable versus what do you do if you can tell somebody else might be the most uncomfortable? Because what's a strategy there? Because I think we both can agree you're going to get a better song and better lyrics and a better melody and everything if everybody can, like, loosen their shoulders and unclench their fists and release their jaw. Like, how do you get yourself to do that, but how do you get maybe the person next to you to do that too if they can't do it on their own?
Well, I much prefer the second side of that scenario because I try so hard to be what I like to call an artist advocate. And I think it's important to have one of those in every session, especially with a younger artist, because if I write with some of the best writers in the world in my opinion. But sometimes if you have a younger artist who's in the room who's intimidated and these songwriters want to find a clever angle and a cool rhyme, you really lose the message that the artist wants to say, or they'll just get spoken over. And if you end up with a song that is great and clever, but the artist doesn't relate to, that doesn't do anything for any of our careers. So
Yeah.
I try really hard to be an artist advocate. And I do this thing that some of the people I write with a lot kind of make fun of me for. I like stop a session and I will say, are you happy with where this is going? And it's okay to say no. Do you hate the drum track if there's a track person in the room?
Yeah.
Is this key feel good for you? Let's stop and figure that out before we move forward, before it's like a runaway train.
Mm-hmm.
So I think just like tapping into their energy and talking, making them feel comfortable, complimenting them, even the most incredible vocalists, sometimes, it's nice to tell them that they sound beautiful in the room that day. They're feeling insecure. Maybe the melody will be a little limited than it would be if you're encouraging them to spread their wings, so to speak. But for the first scenario, I do struggle with this one. Not with people that I'm in a few rooms right now that feel like family, but for new rooms or people that I am intimidated by, I can be quiet, or I do this all the time. I'm trying to stop doing it. Before I throw out a line, I'll say, well, this isn't right, or this is really stupid, but just to help us brainstorm. And nine
Yeah.
times out of 10, like that's the line every time I do
Yeah.
that. So I'm working on that. So I'll let you know what I discover, but I'm trying to just
Okay.
be myself, establish what I feel like are my strengths right off the bat, be a team player, be vocal and collaborative and like in the right, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I love what you said about that being the line because it makes sense. You're pulling it from a place that feels less safe. And that's why you're prefacing it with this. I don't know, or like I always say, this could just be a placeholder line. I always say that, but I always in the back of my mind, I'm kind of secretly hoping they like it. Like I will do that too, but I think it's because you're pulling it from a place that feels a little more vulnerable.
Mhm.
And if you're in the right room of people, they'll recognize that and they'll be like, well, that's the line. We haven't reached that yet. So I think that's a really important point to make because I would agree, and I hope you would too, of like the value in that is the whole point of why you're sitting right there and why you
Right.
are in that room is
Right.
to be the person that pulled that and contribute to the greater cause because nobody else was going to say it. So
Right.
you had to or think of it. I think that's so valuable. Um, I want to ask you too, because obviously I would imagine in these spaces you're thinking very creatively and in the moment, but there's also been a ton of conversation very recently in the past couple years, as royalty and commission kind of feels like it's coming from everywhere. We don't have to get like too nitty-gritty into it, but I feel like we have to address it in the sense of like how do you make sure that you are receiving the credit that you're
Mhm.
owed? How do you make sure that, you're protecting your value and your worth? And like, do you feel like that's something that most people are, at least in the Nashville community, are ready to kind of be open to and everybody is very generous of that? Or how hard do you have to fight to make sure, your even name gets on a project or make sure you know, get that paycheck for lack of like a better term because like
Right.
it's your livelihood,
Right.
when you are paying your rent or mortgage or whatever off of creativity, it's not as simple as a direct deposit always.
So I have kind of a woo-woo perspective on this. I hate that I've said woo-woo 3 times now, but here we are. I'm just such a millennial. Okay, my first thing before I kind of dive into that is I think it's really important if you want to be a songwriter to take a really good look at just the state of reality. Not to be a pessimist about things, but until you sign a major deal or have, a big pie that publishers might want a piece of, um, unless you're doing a bunch of sync placements, it's really important to have something that will pay your bills and make you comfortable so that you can be the most creatively fulfilled person you can be. So, I do business writing and no one's writing songs 24/7 and if you are, you're not going to, you know, be the
You're
most yeah.
If you are, you're spiraling. I'm gonna break it to you. you're
You're either
That's
like
what's happening there.
you're going through a breakup or you need to call somebody.
Yes.
So, with that said, I always tell, especially the younger artist friends I have, find something that makes you comfortable. No one needs to suffer. I don't believe that you need to suffer for your art. With that said, once that's kind of taken care of and you have the flexibility and the freedom to take sessions and all of that, I think it's important to, you know, be a business person and register your songs with your PRO. The worst thing
Hmm.
that'll happen is they're double registered, but at least you know it's registered correctly with your name and your number.
Yeah.
Artists, as much as we love them, are sometimes not the most business minded people, not to make a
Uh-huh.
generalization, but sometimes the onus is on the writers to make sure that the splits are correct. Um, you're getting the publishing percentage that you deserve, and your name is on there, and your name is being brought up in conversations about the song.
Yeah.
Um, Another thing that I always tell newer writers or artists is shout out your co-writers when you're playing writers rounds. You never know that scenario has changed my life a few times where someone has heard my name be shouted out at a writers round or at whiskey jam or on stage somewhere, um, and you know, it's the least you can do. Just shout out your co-writers, give them the credit, tag them on social media. Um, and then, you know, I've had two scenarios in particular. One, I wrote a song for a pop artist, and her management negotiated publishing for the producer without telling us writers. It was a three-way write. So me, another peer writer, and then the artist. And we didn't know until a few days before the song came out and we got the split sheet that our percentages were from 33.33% down to, I think it was 15. And I personally, a few years ago, was just going to take it. And my co-writer fought for us. She got on the phone and she said, "No, we wrote the song. We legally we own a third of that. You cannot take our publishing away. You can figure out a different way to pay the
Yeah.
producer." And so that was amazing. I've also had songs come out that my name isn't on, and I fight and push to make sure that their management or team or them doesn't, you know, rectifies the situation with the streaming services, because again,
Yeah.
you never know who's hitting song credits, and that can change your life too.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so important. It seems so like what it seems very what if, but also like that's how things happen too at the same time. Like it's not actually that crazy. And I think that's why it's extra important too, because with Spotify it shows you all those credits now. And actually, it's so crazy you say that too, because I have even gone to songs that I really love
Hmm.
and I wanted to know like, okay, who produced this slash who like wrote on this. I've actually wanted this is so wild because I have gone on because I've wanted to know who did that. And
Exactly.
I wanted to like, look at their Instagram or send a DM. Like I've wanted to
Right.
do that. And I will go on and it'll be like that little like dash, like they never inputted it. And then you don't there's
Right.
nowhere else really where you can find that information
And
unless you reach out to people directly.
to your point, I went to school in LA. I have a lot of friends in LA who are actors, actresses, and they have IMDb. It is a comprehensive list of everything that they've been in. It's really
Yeah.
cool. And we don't have that. We have our Instagram and we have credits on the Spotify and other streaming services. And it's really like it's really important. So I try so hard to spread the gospel. Shout out your
Yeah.
co-writers, thank the songwriters. And um, I think it's definitely becoming more of the moment, especially with the Grammy Awards introducing Songwriter of the Year.
Yep.
It's such a important and amazing part of the process, like the writing of the song. And I think especially, songwriters aren't known to get paid the most. We don't get money from, you know, the bigger things that an artist does in their career. So I think it's
Yeah.
important to make sure you credit your writers.
Yeah. Oh my god. Okay. Well, I want to like okay, I'm going to ask you like really really quick cuz this is like a just an interesting question that
Okay.
I think of. How do you keep okay. Oh, I also don't want to forget the other way I wanted to go.
Okay.
How do you keep track of everything you've worked on? I think that's something I'm really interested in
Yeah.
because, you're writing all the time. Like how do you have like I guess I'm fishing for an answer of like do you have a Excel sheet? Like what do
You
you
bet
have
it.
that
You bet.
okay. Like because I'm sure you have to, you're doing this much writing and you're investing your creativity into it. Like when did you kind of like learn to keep track of that and do you think that's like the best way to do that?
So when I was writing alone in LA, because all of my artist stuff I wrote completely by myself. Every time I finished a song, I would email it to myself. And like if the year was 2017, I would just write 2017 song in the subject line. So I could go search 2017 song in my email and every single song would pop up. Like that's how I used to do it. Um, Now, as you know, in the songwriting world, we use Google Docs almost exclusively. So it's a pretty cool permanent record of, unless someone's like crazy and goes and deletes the document. But what I do is anytime I get a demo back or even a work tape recorded just on my phone, I upload it to the same Google Drive that has the Google Doc in it. And then on top of that, I have two other things. I have a comprehensive spreadsheet. I got really bad about that in like all of 2021. So I don't know what happened to all my 2021 songs, but I've been keeping really good track this year. And I indicate, was it a right for pitch? Was it a right for the artist? Is it being cut? When's it coming out? And then do I have a demo of it? But then also I have a song space with basically what I just call like my Schedule A songs. So if I were, when the time comes to sign the right publishing deal,
Yeah.
all the songs that I believe will be the most valuable to a third party should I choose to go that route. And those are just like the ones you're so proud of. So I have like a total of probably 20 on that entire thing. So it's just different mechanisms of keeping track.
Yeah. Okay,
And you
that's
can
so
never
smart.
delete your texts because I also just go
Yes.
search the group text to figure out who did I write this with.
Yes. I have learned texts hold up sometimes.
Yes.
And yes, yes. And we don't need to get into that.
Right.
Um okay. I think it's really good to know because I think that's just something I wanted to know personally too. Like
Mhm.
even just for like the stuff that I like I go into periods of like, oh, I wrote what feels like 80 songs in a month
Yeah.
or something. And then there'll be the time where it's like I haven't had any inspiration or whatever.
Yeah.
And so I'm always interested how you organize, especially things you don't like, especially right like voice memos, whatever. You can't like write those down. So I like your kind of strategy for how you kind of lay all that out. I think it's important and it goes back to our discussion about making sure you're given what you're owed.
Right.
Um, do you think this greater sort of movement for songwriter recognition? Actually, I'm not going to ask I'm going to ask you what you think is fueling that first because I have ideas
Okay.
that I was going to preface, but I want to see what you're thinking. What is like fueling people to recognize songwriters?
I think it's a couple of things. The biggest one that sticks out to me is that we're kind of exiting this really cool, what was a great era. Like, I like this new era too, but this era of the superstar. So, you have a Michael Jackson, and I don't know if that's something that can happen again in our lifetime because part of the allure, in my opinion, of a superstar is that you don't really, there's a lot of mystery, right? That you can't
Yeah.
track their every second. They're not tweeting their favorite toilet paper brand. Like, there's just something so accessible about today's artists that humanize them. With that said, when you have somebody so mysterious like a Michael Jackson, or I don't know, he just keeps coming to mind.
Hmm.
You don't I don't know who wrote those songs, I'll be honest with you. Like, I love songwriting more than anything in my life, and I care a lot about who wrote songs. I couldn't tell you who wrote any of those songs with him or if he wrote them alone. I have no idea because it was all about the superstar, and whatever he released, I mean, it was all incredible, but whatever he released was successful. That's just how the industry was set up. So, I think now we have this new era where instead of the artist taking the main stage, I think the song takes the main stage. So yes,
Yeah.
of course, you have like a Harry Styles, right? But like, you also have these people who can pop off on TikTok, or people who can on Instagram, who can go from nobody to having a deal in 24 hours because of how clever their lyrics are. It has nothing to
Yeah.
do with, the intrigue of their personal life, or I don't know, there's just something so different about art as a or music as an art form these days. It feels a lot more song forward. People are more interested in it. We had the Songland show kind of show the process to the whole world, and I think, I don't know, part of me thinks that because of that, it's becoming a lot more visible that this is a thing that happens. Michael Jackson didn't just like, spit out a melody and then there was Thriller, it's a lot of moving parts, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I think that's a really great way to sum up the a lot of moving parts, as you said. Because you're right, it's not like, one person didn't just stand up and be like, "Hey, somebody wrote that." Like that's not how that
No.
works. It's kind of a collective kind of curiosity, I think, too. And you kind of hit on a really great point of just how much we like share and how much we watch artists now and how easy it is to find new artists and how it's become advantageous to an artist to overshare and break down a song process and this kind of community of we're all hustling and we're all kind of fighting for this piece. It feels less maybe shameful to be fighting for your stake in that game. I
Yeah.
also think I also think too, like, there's a ton of people who have kind of branded themselves as like true singer-songwriters, like, who, either started as a songwriter and like became a singer, and they've really kind of vocalized that story so much that we wonder, like, oh, like, we can almost hear their style in their other work, and we kind of pick up on, the more you listen, you can say, like, oh, like, this is a Tamara lyric. Like, like, I
Right.
know the way that she writes. And
Right.
I think that's a new way to enjoy music, which
Right.
I love. And I think people who genuinely love music as much as both of us do, like, they find more fulfillment in kind of finding those patterns. So I hope that's a
Definitely.
reason too. That one might be a
Yeah.
little more out there, but
No,
but I
definitely.
think you hit on a ton of great points. And as we get towards the end of the episode here, I want to talk a little bit too, because a lot of people who I'm expecting kind of be listening to this episode specifically, like, are going to be in this space, and maybe there's even artists listening who are curious about going into songwriting. And I even have friends of mine now that will text me a lyric and they'll be like, was this like a good lyric? I thought of this. And I love that
Yeah.
the almost barrier to entry into songwriting is getting a little bit lower,
Hmm.
because it is one of the rare, I think a lot of art, I won't say rare maybe, but it's one of those art forms where I do think the more the merrier,
Yes.
because what inspires me most in writing is other music.
Hmm.
So the more that you can hear and the more perspectives you can kind of hear, the more enriching it becomes. If you were, moving to Nashville today, or if you were deciding that this was your kind of choice today, and your old self looked at you and asked, like, what do I do now? What would you begin to say?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll start with the things that I think I did right, and then I'll go into the things that I think I did wrong that
Okay.
other people should fix.
Great.
So, my first piece of advice, and this might be a little controversial to some songwriters, but write by yourself. Figure out enough chords on an instrument. You don't need to be a virtuoso. Figure out enough, if you can play all the C shapes in the C scale, and then
Yep.
you can, or in the key of C, and then you can move your capo up and down your neck. You got a million songs you can write. So learn enough chords on an instrument. Guitar is usually easy to move around, take to session. So that might be you know, there might be a benefit to that. But write by yourself and just learn, study the songs that you love and figure out why you love them. For me, it was, oh, I really love like really syllabic pre-choruses. I really love when there's a clever flip at the end. And I really don't love really long drawn out notes in the verse, like just for example. I do
Yeah.
think that that's fine in certain
Oh.
instances. But write by yourself and figure out your own kind of inspiration and learn how to write when you're not inspired. And then
Mhm.
once you're getting stuff alone that you're proud of and not always inspired, start co-writing, meet other writers, move to a city. If you can, move to Nashville. If not, if you're near New York or LA or Nashville, take trips. There's songwriting communities in literally every city. Um, you and I would know that. We've probably
Yeah.
been a part of most of them. Um, but there are, there are songwriters everywhere at varying levels of the career and, abilities, but just meet the people in your town, start co-writing, get good at co-writing. And then I think once you have those two things nailed, start meeting your people. For example, I have a crew of people in town that they're my go-tos. I know if I'm in a room with these people and an artist, we're gonna get a great song and we're all gonna leave like happy and in a good mood because they're people I trust.
Yeah.
So I think combination of that while also trying out new people and trying to maximize your opportunities is a great plan. On the other side of things I didn't do right. Um, I first got to Nashville and I wasn't going out every night. I was in a really serious relationship and was kind of just like, do I want to be an artist? I don't know. I don't really know what's going on. So I was writing a lot alone and with like one or two people, but the community that I have now, like I would love to have had another couple of years with them. It's been incredible. So go out, go to every single writer's round every single night. Go out every night. You don't have to drink.
Yeah.
Just go out, meet people. That's still to this day. Some of my best opportunities come from going to a writer's round, hearing a song I like, or someone hears a song that I play that they like. And that's how you end up getting like 6 cuts, you know? So
Yeah.
I think just go out and meet people, write with everyone. Don't have any kind of filter at first, and then start weeding out people that you feel like don't inspire you as much or aren't willing to take it as seriously as you. And then start to bring in artists and start to tell other people's stories for them. And yeah, I think just like doing it. And it's also it's one of those things like you're not, I don't know, I feel like people, you got to be a really good kicker to be kicking a field goal at the Super Bowl, right? But
Yeah.
you learn by doing in this industry. You learn by being in sessions. So
Yeah.
just like put yourself in the room, and if you have any kind of melodic or lyrical instincts and you're a good people person, you'll eventually find your way. It just takes a while to learn the rules of it all.
Yeah. Well, to go off of your analogy, yeah, you only kick at the Super Bowl because you've made some kicks to get there.
Right. You got to like you got to kick at the field goal at one point, and I'm assuming you like probably don't make that first kick, right? Like
If we went out to Lumen Field right now,
let's go.
I won't speak for you. I wouldn't make that kick,
100%
but
absolutely not.
I think you would. I would bet money you would.
I don't
That's your
know.
energy, though. You would.
I don't know. Now I want to
uh,
know. My little brother will put me up to that when I'm home next. But
great.
um yeah, I think just do it. Also, last thing about that, it's sometimes there's a little voice inside your head that says you want to do something that doesn't make sense because you haven't done it before, you're not particularly skilled in that area yet, and I think it's so important to listen to it. And unless it's like, go free climb or free solo up whatever mountain, maybe don't do that.
Yeah,
But something like this, like it's in your heart for a reason, and I think it's worth pursuing.
absolutely. You already answered what was going to be my last question, because I always on the show kind of I end with this question of somebody just took an hour to listen to you. If they have another hour right now, what should they do? Because I do feel like a lot of the times on podcasts and stuff like this, they end and I like the only thing I really got out of it was like, just like trust your gut. And then I'm like sitting there like at my desk and I'm
What's my gut? Say it.
like what? I don't like that wasn't really that like I've heard that before. And so I always ask the guests, like, if they have 1 hour right now, like, what should they do? And I kind of feel like you hit on a bunch of great answers, but I want to give you the opportunity to reiterate anything you felt like was really, really important if they have an hour right now.
I have a new one. This
Okay,
is something that
amazing.
I do that really fills up the creativity bucket. Not to sound like I'm 90 years old, but um I grab your phone and your AirPods, your headphones or whatever, and like just go on a walk, go on a long meandering walk and listen to songs that you love and look around at the neighborhood and notice things you haven't seen before and just like write down things that come to you. Honestly, some of my best ideas come from doing that.
Amazing. That's perfect. That might be one of my favorite answers to that question, actually,
Are
because
we
that
both
is
going on
so
walks?
tangible.
Are we both going on walks after this? Like I
I'm
think so.
about to. I've got what 30 more minutes of daylight left today. I'm going
You
for it.
walk south, I'll walk north. Just
Great.
kidding.
And at one point we'll hit each other
Next
somewhere
year.
in West Virginia. Yeah.
Yeah.
um I want to thank you so so much for being so transparent and so honest and real and encouraging. You are one of the reasons why I really love music today because it does feel like you are somebody who just does not adopt this gatekeep energy at all. Like I really do feel like you are such a more the merrier person because the second you walked into the room when we first met, or actually we may have not even been a room, we may have been outside, but
Outside.
carrying I mean that's a story for another
Yes,
time.
that really
Maybe
is.
we'll unpack later on or I'll talk about it at a later point. But that's why I just admire your work and so much, and everyone who I know that is around you just speaks of you so highly. And I think it's such a testament to you too, because all those people have different goals and they're working with you for different reasons, and for you to have an impact on them in their own sort of individual aspirations, I think is just one of the biggest compliments to who you are as a human being. um but I do have one more question for you, if
Oh,
that's all
that was
right.
so sweet, but yeah, of course.
I just want to end on this note. In your opinion, what makes a great song?
Okay, I'm usually lyric and concept girl first, so I'm gonna say you're telling a unique story that means a lot to you in a specific way with a unique melody, a fresh perspective, and a relatable hook.
You read that or said that at a pace that was so perfect for people to write down. I sincerely hope people were writing that, and that's amazing. That's a phenomenal answer too.
And the last thing
Oh,
is
oh,
is
she's not
this
done.
well, I feel like
Okay.
I just thought of this, but it relates. Sometimes people don't want to be so specific because they feel like it alienates the listener base, but when you go on your walk, on your creative girl walk or whatever people are calling them these days,
Yep.
um, listen to your favorite songs and I bet they're really specific. Sometimes the more specific you are, the more people can relate because it
Yeah.
just captures the emotion in a really acute way.
Amazing. Tam, I can't thank you enough. You've given me a ton of
Thank
wisdom, and I
you.
know everybody listening is going to feel a little bit, at least a little bit, more inspired today. So, thank you so much for everything that you do. And I look forward to not only myself following all the amazing credits and music and future that you have ahead, but for everybody else to join me in that journey too.
Thank you so much. Come back to Nashville soon.
Okay, fine.
We're going line dancing.
Okay, great. I'm on my way. Thanks for joining me today on Groundbreaking. If you want to listen to more of Tamara's work and get to know her better, you can connect with her at Tamara Laurel. All social links will be in the description for you. Stay tuned for more next time on the show, and as always, be sure to rate and comment on the show from wherever you're listening. You can also connect with me at Jake Brewer Music across all social channels and see more of what Friendly's up to at Friendly Media or by visiting friendlymedia.com. That's FRNDLY Media. Thanks again for tuning in, and we will see you next time for more Groundbreaking.